Hi, my name is Stephen Gillis, and I'll be talking about social reform when it comes to gender ideas. Specifically, the reason I'm credible on this topic is because of the amount of books as well as documents that I've read, as well as that I've created on this topic. This topic is relevant due to the factor of it changing prevalency in our society today. We've seen the traditional roles been taken away and reformed into more lighter or liberal views. We've seen these liberal views to be more of women doing more hard labor, men being more feminine when it comes to housework, house husbands, as well as an idea that's actually talked about. Although these things might be jokes, they're happening as well as they're very prevalent. A lot of men are not working comparative to women when we talk about a man supposed to be working or what a man's job is. We've seen these social reforms ideas change. It specifically talks about in one of the books I put down, Gender Acceleration as a Black Page. It talks about how we can compare gender and how humans structure gender as comparative to an AI. How certain AIs would change as well as evolve, and we need to go past what we structured the first AI to be. This idea comes forth to talk about what will happen with gender in the future, and it states through how the Cold War happened. It said the Cold War, the big muscular view on men being warmongers, strong war types, has been changed. We've seen this to be accelerated, this idea from the Cold War to the 21st century. Even though the Cold War could be correlated to the 21st century, we literally differentiate these things when we're talking about acceleration under capitalist structure. And the reason the capitalist structure would accelerate these ideas comes from a lot of forms. This is also compared in Gender Acceleration as a Black Page. Nick Land talks about how we can compare this to social reform with civil rights movements, as well as such things as gay movements as well. That these things have accelerated past their point. The first civil rights movement took about 50 years, but if we compare that to how long it took to actually free or stop slavery in the United States, it's close to about 100 years. That is a wide gap. It's almost half the time. With under this accelerated idea, we had the first form of capitalism when we actually started here in America. Even though it was a lighter form of capitalism, it's later been changed to monopolization, industrialization. We've seen these ideas change and evolve past their rather form self. Now we got to talk about how these ideas will be structured, which goes into the next book. The way these ideas will be structured is by feminizing men and masculinizing women. If we lack masculinity in men, we can take away masculinity as a whole. Nick Land also talks about this idea, but not extensively as the other book does. So it's stated that when we take away masculinity, such problems of gender would start to crumble down. And this idea has rather been proven based off certain factors. There's been less gender war now that men are being more accepting of women, as well as men are being less lightened when it comes to masculinization. We've seen this idea throughout certain TikToks, guys painting their nails, guys wearing dresses. Of course, these ideas are still joked about, they're still made fun of, they're still pushed down. These ideas are rather changing, and we can see the change in the form or flow of how they're changing now. The way this goes about proving it is exactly through what I've stated before, is capital. They say capitalism is an accelerating system. I've already given proof of how capitalism is an accelerating system, but you might be wondering, why would that gender ideas accelerate? Because they're one of the biggest structures in how we socialize, and this program of capitalism will always influence structure as well as mindset. Beforehand, during the feudal age, or during the times of a feudal system, we saw people who would structure themselves under a system of peasantry, under a system of knighthood, and these things would be seen as how we view society. A lot of people would wear, dress, or act as their assigned role. And we've seen this under capital as well. And we can compare how this idea would actually impact social implications. And that's why gender, when we talk about capitalism or how it will influence our gender social structure, it is so prevalent because it's directly linked. Every economic system, every system of upheld government will influence how society works and how it operates. I've just given proof by using the feudal system comparison as well as the logical inferences from it. So now that we've proved that capitalism will influence gender, how capitalism influences gender because it's social structure and the system of actual gender acceleration, we got to talk about why these ideas are actually happening in the first place. I went over it quite a bit in the past few minutes. I went over it here and there, but the exact reason why these ideas are changing is specifically because society has deemed these views to no longer be prevalent and to be conservative and traditional. That's why I reference the old gender roles as traditional gender roles and not just old gender roles, because it's specifically a conservative traditional idea to keep to women being such a feminine state and men being such a masculinized warmongering state. And so that is why and how we are talking about gender form and gender ideas as a structure. So that is why there is such a big social reform, is because we are rather liberalizing these ideas. We've seen a liberal movement come about. So gender as an idea has been restructured, and that is why it's so prevalent. I feel like this topic should be more studied. That is my take upon the topic, as well as you can do more research yourself. The book that I use mostly is by Nick Land, Gender Acceleration as a Black Page. There's PDFs as well as the book itself can be found. It's about a 200-300 page read. The rest of the book isn't very prevalent. The first thing he goes over is what you really need to know, as well as you can read Capital books, which will actually give you programs of how it will influence social structure. And that is my speech on social reform and gender ideas.